Hi guys, Ancient Warrior, welcome back. Boy, I've had nothing but fits getting this video done for y'all. Let's talk about food. Now folks, it's wintertime. I'm doing this video, it's about 9 o'clock in Amarillo, and it's about 28 degrees outside. I went hunting about a week ago, and one of the guys, 3 older men and son-in-law of one of the guys, went with us. Young man didn't carry enough food with him. Matter of fact, he didn't carry any food with him. He carried power bars and protein shakes. Now let me tell you about this young man. He's an airlines pilot. And he's trying to lose a little weight. Folks, quick way to do it. Don't eat enough, then go out and start shivering your butt off out there in the bad weather. Now we went turkey hunting about 2 weeks ago, the 18th. And we were out for 3 days. At one point I thought we was going to be bringing him back to town to the emergency room because he was almost hypothermic. Folks, protein shakes are great. Energy bars are great around the house and to carry in your... But when it's icy cold outside, the 3 nights we were gone, the mercury dipped down into the mid to low 20s. A couple of nights it got into the teens. He was lucky. His father-in-law and I will always pack a little extra food just in case. I took about 5 containers, they're probably quart containers, about like that and about that deep, full of spaghetti I'd made. I was really hoping the guys would eat it so I didn't have to bring it home and eat it. I love spaghetti, but there's a point in my life where enough is enough. This young man had gotten with a nutritionist who told him, got to do high protein, low carbs. That's great around the house. That's great if you're staying inside. If you're in a car where it's warm or an airplane where it's warm. It's a bad idea if it's a bad idea if you're outside having to make your way back home. Young man, I carry a laser thermometer, a blood pressure cuff, and an oximeter with me. Friday night he was cold, and I asked him if he had anything other than his baseball cap, and he said no. So I checked my bag. I always carry backups and stuff, and I handed him an extra watch cap. And I asked him, I said, when was the last time you changed your socks? He was complaining about his feet being cold and his hands. He said, well, really haven't yet. And I said, you probably need to do that. I'm going to give you a quick bio on this young man. Airline pilot. He's been, I believe, flying for this company for about 6 years. He came from the Air Force. And if I remember right, don't hold me to this, if I remember right, he flew a KC-30 or 130. I can't remember what he said. He did aerial refueling. He was a pilot on one of those. Second day we were out there, he was shivering, and I could see it. Sorry, guys. Sometimes my old back just needs to readjust. So I asked him, I said, the first night I noticed he drank a protein shake. For breakfast he had a protein shake and an energy bar. And by the time we got back to the cabin after breakfast, he was shivering. I'm sitting there looking, and I asked him, I said, how many calories between the protein shake and he said about 400. I said, okay, how many carbs? He said 12. And I said, between the two of them? He said, yeah. Now he's sitting there shivering, and I said, have you changed your socks again? And he looked at me and he said, what do you mean? And I said, let me touch your hand. I touched the palm of his hand, and it was a very cold, moist cold. If you've ever, it was clammy. And I said, okay, I know what's going on. Reached over to the refrigerator, grabbed one of those deals of spaghetti, threw it in the microwave, and handed it to him with a fork, and I said, you need to eat this right now. Now, let me tell you something. I'd already taken his temperature, and he was starting to drop down from 98. He was about 94.9, 94.7. I took it twice. His blood pressure was getting up around 150. His oximeter was at 89, and I got him to take a few deep breaths, and it crawled back up to 92. So he changed his socks and everything, and he looked at me and he says, you sure worried about socks being changed? And I said, you don't want your feet getting frozen out here. He ate it, and I said, now, when you get through eating, I want you to tell me when you start heating up, start warming up. We was sitting there, and it was, this particular day we did not get to go back out. And it was not because of him. It was because we opened the door, and there was a freezing fog. And you weren't going to be able to see a turkey in that anyway. He was sitting there, it wasn't 10 minutes, and he said, I'm warming up. And he opened his shirt up a little bit, and he took the skull cap off I gave him, and he said, man, I'm getting warm, finally. And he said, why am I getting warm? And I looked at him and said, you had nothing to burn. Now, he's been on this new high-protein, low-carb diet for less than a week. And I told him, out in the cold like that, you need to have some carbs in your system, because it's like taking a handful of leaves and throwing it on the fire. A small amount of carbs, and you got a blazing smoky fire. But if you take an old piece of wood, rotted wood, throw it up on there, on top of those leaves, then it burns a while. The rest of the evening he didn't complain about being cold at all. We came home Sunday. He grabs me up. We ran into each other at church. He grabbed me up and he said, "How in the world did I lose 11 pounds in less than a week?" And I said, "You didn't lose 11 pounds. You shivered it off." And I explained to him. And I said, "You were in the Air Force, right?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "You were a pilot in the Air Force." And I said, "Didn't you take cold weather survival?" And he said, yeah, I had to. And I said, "SEER training?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you remember any of it?" And he said, "Oh, no." He said, "Cold weather training, he was stationed in Florida, California, and Arizona. And Japan." And he said, "Never really gets that cold where he was at." And I said, "Apparently in the desert you have not been outside at night." I knew the base he'd been at there at Tucson. It gets pretty cold there. Guys, when you're out, now I advocate you carry 7-day 7-day amount of food in your bug out bag, where you get home bag. A lot of you guys will recognize this as a subsistence bag. The pouch for the ACU field pack. I've got 2 of these. Both the same size and both equipped with about a 9-day supply of food. Now, I'm going to tell you something. That 9-day supply of food is 2 meals. That's 18 meals a week, or 18 meals. That's something for breakfast, and then later in the day, a high carb meal. Now, in cold weather, in the summertime, that's great. In the winter, your 9-day supply is going to change to a 6-day supply. Why is that? The 2 meals from your first day, from your 9th day, is going to go, 1 meal is going to go to the first day, and the second meal is going to go to the second day. And so on. If I remember right, it's going to be about 5 or 6 days. Guys, water and food are your 2 major things, in shelter. Now, I showed you the other day in one of my videos that reflective tarp I got over at Harbor Freight. Folks, you can wrap up in that. I carry an intermediate sleeping bag and then wrap that over it. I also have something to elevate me off of the ground. You want to freeze to death in a heartbeat? Sleep directly on the ground. The ground will suck the heat out of your body. So, folks, one of the books I tell you to get is the cold weather, military cold weather survival, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, I don't care. Just get it and study it. You know, save your own life. Teach other people how to save their lives. So, with that being said, I'm the Ancient Warrior. It's better to have this stuff and not need it than need it and not have it. And remember, folks, if you like what you hear here, hit the subscribe button. If you want to be the first kid on your block to know what craziness I'm talking about next, hit the bell icon with all. And, folks, hit the thumbs up, thumbs down. Help the channel. I'm the Ancient Warrior. We're out.